Welcome, friends. We're going to be talking about Fort Story, Cape Henry Lighthouse, and OG Seashore State Park here. In just a minute on Live at Lunch with Rob and Riggs. Wow, Riggs, we got a big one coming up today. How are you doing today, Riggs?
Outstanding, as usual. How are you today, Rob?
I'm doing well. I cannot wait to talk about Fort Story. This is a place I had a lot of fun growing up, and I know you did too. We spent a lot of time running around down there at Fort Story. Lots of cool things going on. Give us a little recap of last week's show. What did we talk about last week?
Pancakes.
Oh, yeah, man. Waffles and things representing down at the ocean front's not there anymore, but that's where my dad used to take me. Our favorite spot was Pocahontas Pancake House. Love those brown rounds we got down there. And sausage links. Just a wonderful time. And before that, we had a little chit-chat about the Witch of Pungo. So we've been focusing this month pretty much on Virginia Beach. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has been quite a lot of fun, man. And I didn't know Waffles and Things had shut down because I hadn't been down in that area since the last time I was there.
Yeah, it's been gone for a minute.
Man, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. There's a couple other fun places down there in the ocean front, but right now we're going to get into weather. What do you say? We get a little bit of weather going on? Guys, it's a hot day out here in Virginia Beach, my friends. Hot day indeed. We're 91 degrees, 5% chance of rain, and we got east-southeast winds at 8 miles per hour. Gusts up to 10, maybe 12. Partly cloudy means the sun's going to peek its head from around the clouds, and might be a good photo opportunity later. I'll have some tips for you on that in just a moment. The weekend, though, partly cloudy as well. Highs in the 80s, lows in the 60s at night. 15% chance of rain, so pretty dry and mostly gusty down there at the ocean front. So if you're having a great time at the ocean front, you're going to want to make sure that you bring, something for your hair, especially if you want to take some photos. It's going to be a beautiful time in Virginia Beach, and we cannot wait to have you guys down here visiting, get together on a barbecue. We just had Memorial Day weekend pop up. It's quite a bit of fun for that. Who had shrimps on the Barbie? I know I did. What about you, Riggs? How did your Memorial Day weekend go?
Hamburgers and hot dogs.
That makes me very happy.
Yes, sir. And of course, I took a few silent, quiet moments to reflect on the holiday itself, what it means, and remember our brothers and sisters in arms who paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can have freedom.
Yeah, without a question, man. Memorial Day is one of somber sweetness. General Patton, what did he say? He said, instead of honoring them, we should thank God for those that laid their lives down. Something like that. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, to that effect, yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Something to that effect. Not to have sorrow for the ones that laid their life for this country, but to thank God for having great men and women that would do such a thing as make that ultimate sacrifice. Totally get it. I want to jump into a real quick camera recommendation. Hey, guys, if you're out there shooting cameras, of course you know that I like instant film. Was shooting instant film this weekend. Did a whole video about it. But with the kids, got out with some Polaroids and Instax. Those are two separate types of film cameras. It was quite a bit of fun. If you guys are watching online, maybe you're interacting, you can kind of see these beautiful pictures that I'm putting up here now that we got just of the family out and about. Lots of fun. And then my youngest son shot some special edition Keith Haring Polaroid. So those are the Polaroid is the traditional 3-inch by 3-inch. Square, like you think Polaroid. Instax is a bunch of different formats. It was quite a bit of fun. But I got to tell you, if you're shooting Instax, I think you'd be better off really using your cell phone and getting one of those Instax Link printers, guys. If you don't know, Instax can shoot digital or analog. And my suggestion here is you probably got a good camera on your phone, so instead of buying the more expensive camera and printer that Instax offers, an Instax Mini Evo, a camera which I like a lot, I would just buy the Instax Wide Link printer. Costs less, and the camera on most modern cell phones, if you've got an S20 or newer, the camera will be better than the sensor, in my opinion, that they're using inside the Instax Mini Evo. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a print that you can print out on the wide film, which is really nice, and you get a high quality image saved on your cell phone. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. If you're just shooting with the Mini Evo, although fun and exciting, you're going to get a much lower resolution, not as good a quality for archiving print. That's really great just for the small print that you make on the instant film. There is my pro tip. What do you think about that, Riggs? Come on.
Oh, I think that's awesome. I think so. If you got the manual camera, you're going with the more classic look.
That's right.
But I didn't know that you could do that, where you could link that to the cell phone camera and then print actually. So you're actually printing the picture out on real film.
I got to tell you,
I understand that correctly?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got to tell you how cool it is. Okay, so the reality is you've got an instant printer that's built into the camera because Fujifilm has the technology. They've been pioneering it since 1999, dude. Since high school for us, right? And they've been making these.
Don't remind me.
I know, right? They've been making these instant prints, right? It's really cool. It's a lot of fun. But there's two ways to do it. You can do it with an instant analog camera, which is not digital, which is back on film, and it uses a lens, the lens of the camera, to focus the light onto the physical print, which will be the film that ejects, and then it's one and done. You print it. If it's good, it's great. If it's bad, you wasted 80 cents or $1.25, depending on the film that you bought. But they've got new cameras, starting with some of their share printers that turned into like their mini play, where they put together the share printer, which is a digital printer that can print on the analog film, the Polaroid-inspired Instax film, right, and take your digital image and transfer it over to that printer. So instead of printing on paper, it prints on those little credit card-sized films. And Fujifilm makes all different sizes. So you can get one that's, basically a business card size. You can get one that's about 2¼ inches by 2¼ inches square, and you can get one that's like 3 by 5. You can get these different sizes. Anyway, one is digital and one is analog. And for this medium, Fujifilm's film has gotten so good, in my opinion. The film itself, it has gotten so good that I think you're better off when it comes to their most new offering of the Instax Mini Evo. This is a great camera. I love it, by the way. I think the camera's great, but I did a big review on this, and, guys, you don't know, I'm Robert Ham Photography, Chris West Entertainment. I own those two businesses. I'm a photographer and an entertainer and things like that, and I've been using cameras for a while, and I think Fujifilm skimped out on the sensor in the Instax Mini Evo because I do not find it to be as good as the ones in your cell phone, which is important because if you're going to take a picture, do you really want to take it twice? No, you want to take one photo, that less work. You take a picture and then you can print it if you want. That's the concept. But the prints, the images that the Mini Evo takes, although good, I don't think they're as good as the camera in your cell phone. Your cell phone's automatically archiving to Google or Apple. You get a better print. And the film, like I've got two pictures online right now, and you can see one of them is a print from me, and you can't see them great. And one of them is a print from the picture. One's from my Galaxy Z Fold 3, and the other one's from the Mini Evo, and they look good, but the one from the Z Fold 3 has the bokeh, the portrait effect. It's a higher, much more nice-looking image, higher dynamic range. I'm getting too much. Just go check the video out on roberthamphotography.com or over on youtube.com/robertham, 2 M's, and you can actually find my impressions. Although, I still take this camera out, so I have a lot of fun with it. I enjoy shooting with it. It's got that classic retro design. It allows you to print only the ones that you like, which means you save money. You don't have to print like the analog cameras, one and done. You can choose the good ones to print. When a pack of film costs $15 for 10 shots, maybe you only want to print the ones you like, right? But in all respect, if you're going to do that as well, I think the digital image that you get is better on your phone, which means save $50 to $100 on the cost of the Mini Evo, which is around $200 to $230, and buy the Mini Link printer for $100, $125, maybe $130 for the wide, the biggest one that they make. Save $70 and have the best of both worlds: a great digital image, as well as the ability to print the images that you want and have them on that really iconic Fujifilm paper. It's cool. It's really cool. What do you think, Riggs?
Oh, I think that's good. I didn't know that you could do that. Like I was telling you earlier, how you can kind of now connect the two. It's kind of like a crossover between the old, Polaroid style picture with the latest technology, being able to print it and select what you want. The old classic way. Hey, maybe some people still like that. So if they want that, it's great that they have that option where they can take that picture. But like most new technology, it gives you new options and new ways to do things, which is pretty awesome. And I got educated on that because I didn't know that you could do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And you know what? It really works into what we're doing today, because today we're talking about places you would absolutely want to take iconic kind of photographs. And this is exactly it. We're going to be talking about Seashore State Park. Of course, halfway through the... okay, let's not forget today, this is the Live at Lunch with Robin Riggs. This is your Wednesday, weekly, midday lunch show where we talk about all kinds of things, from aliens to flat Earth. The Earth is not flat, friends. We say that out of a little bit of jest.
To the hunt for Bigfoot, the search for Mothman, and beautiful concepts like the Witch of Pungo. Today we'll be talking a little bit about Blackbeard. It's just we get into a lot of stuff here. Really Virginia Beach lore.
Pancakes.
And, oh, man, you're right. Don't forget pancakes. So this is your Live at Lunch show. And, of course, we've got a drop report coming up halfway through the show. And then we're going to roll out. Actually, I think today we'll do the drop report at the end of the show. And we've got a couple of business sponsors, fun places to go, things we like in Virginia Beach. So we don't want you to forget about that while we're talking about all these cool things. Like, why would you want a Fujifilm Instax mini camera? And I think it's simple. You're going to go to the Cape Henry Lighthouse. You might want a camera. And if you're going to take a camera, you might want to take one that's easy, right? So if you've got your cell phone and you want to make really cool prints, you can do it right off of the Instax Mini Evo. Of course, some people will want something more. Like, they might want to, some kind of digital high-resolution camera to make big prints. But if we're just talking for ease of archive, you've got a phone. Don't you like it when Google shows you your pictures from like 8 years ago?
Sometimes.
Only sometimes. I love it, man. I wake up, I've got 30 or 40,000 photos on Google on my drive, just from my cell phone from the past 15 years, ever since I've been doing it. And so, pictures of my youngest pop up, and my old, it's just neat. I really like having that. And those aren't the same photos I keep in like Lightroom on my computer. Those are just the ones taken from my cell phone, which are ones you usually might not think about. I've got regular cameras that I use for professional work. So having a camera like my cell phone that goes along with me is not really a picture that I'm usually thinking about. And then when it pops up, it really makes me happy. So that's why I like this kind of stuff, because it's like two birds with one stone. I get a nice picture, a nice print if I want it, an instant print, which is really cool. And I don't have to really change much about what I'm doing. Silence. That was crickets.
That is a nice feature.
Okay, well,
so.
We'll see. Okay, silence. Riggs, let's talk about it. What are we starting off with today?
All right, so first, we're going to start off at Cape Henry.
Sure.
Which is a large area at the north end of Virginia Beach. Most of the locals will be familiar, but for any of our out-of-town listeners, that's, a part of Virginia Beach. It's kind of the opposite end of the last area that we really focused on, which was Pungo, which is the south end of Virginia Beach when we were talking about the Witch of Pungo. This is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum as the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. The historical significance of Cape Henry is that it was the site of first landing for the English settlers who eventually ended up moving on and moving up to Jamestown and forming the first colony up at Jamestown. However, fast forward a few years, the Chesapeake Bay became a significant and strategic place in Virginia, but along the whole East Coast. And because of that strategic and economic significance and importance, they needed a lighthouse on that area to guide ships in. So the first lighthouse that was put in there was known as Cape Henry Lighthouse, which was built in the late 1700s, post the Revolutionary War. So what's interesting, little bit of facts for you about the first lighthouse, Cape Henry Lighthouse, was that it was the first federal construction project under the Constitution. And the original contract amount was $15,200. And an additional $2,500 needed to be added in order to finish. Man, I wonder with inflation what $15,200 in today's cost would be from the late 1700s. I want to say like 1792 was when it was originally authorized and they began construction. So Man, I wonder how much money that would be today in today's adjusted dollars. So
it would look like.
Oh, you got it? Are you pulling it up?
$100 back then, $100 would be worth around $3,000 today. And so in 15,000, we have what? 150 100s?
Yep.
So 150 times 3, so 15 times 3 is 45. So how many zeros do I have to add? 1, 2, 3? So that's $450,000.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I don't have anything in front of me, but yeah, rough estimate. Well, yeah, so about $500,000, close to $500,000 would sound about right.
Yeah, $450,000. That's how much they paid for it. Yeah, I just did the math again. So my brain math was right. School. No Common Core. How about straight up school? Ha ha ha. Oh man, we're gonna get some unhappy people about that one.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got an idea. What is 1792? The lighthouse is built, but there's more than this. Just this. That's the first lighthouse. Some of our more astute visitors, and let's not forget, Virginia Beach is a place where there's lots of stuff going on. So many people may not have even been to the Cape Henry Lighthouse. It's on Fort Story, right? And so there are actually 2 of them, and I think you're getting ready to talk about that. But for those of you that are listening now, there are actually 2. The original one built in 1792, and then another one built later. And Riggs, while you're actually talking about that, I'm looking through my old photos. I've taken pictures. I've got photos on Google of this that are on the Google Maps that people can see. And I was just looking through there. There's literally 1 million photos of the Cape Henry Lighthouse. And so you probably won't find mine easily. But I'm looking through my other photo source. I printed some from my grandmother back in the day of Cape Henry, because she used to go to the Cape Henry Lighthouse when she lived in Virginia Beach, or it lived in Portsmouth many decades ago when she and my grandfather met.
Okay.
And I wanted to just kind of put some of those up on the screen of Cape Henry from back when I took those photos. But I got to find them, so just keep on going.
Okay. So the first lighthouse, the first federal construction project approved by George Washington under the Constitution. What happened was apparently there was a lightning strike at a certain point that actually struck the lighthouse itself that caused cracks in the brick.
Really?
Yes. The maintainers of the lighthouse saw the cracks in the bricks, but had no way, and the technology of the day, they didn't have a way to x-ray building construction materials, look for fissures and cracks, and that were deep into the structure itself. So they didn't realize that those cracks were just superficial, and that the actual foundational structure of the lighthouse itself, the things holding it together, were still intact. So they began to build another lighthouse that's adjacent to it. They're very close together. As we'd say, stone's throw away.
Literally.
The second,
yeah.
The second lighthouse is made of cast iron, and it is painted black and white, and it's still operational today. It still serves its original purpose as a lighthouse, so it's not open to tours or to visitors. However, it's on the ground, so you can see it and still take nice photos of it. But the original lighthouse, when it's not under renovation, because over the last few years, there's been a few times that it's been under renovation and you weren't able to visit. So if you're going to go visit this place, you definitely want to call ahead, make sure that the original lighthouse is not under renovation. And you also want to look at the official website so that you can see, this is your travel tip here, you want to check out the base's criteria, because it's Fort Story / Little Creek is a joint amphibious military installation. So all the branches are there. So you have to abide by base security protocols, park at a parking lot that's adjacent to the gate, and then you actually will undergo a search. You're only allowed to bring certain materials, and you're only allowed to photograph in authorized areas. So these are things that you need to know and understand before you go there. So make sure you do your research ahead of time. check out the rules and regulations required before you go. But once you get there, the original lighthouse, although it had the cracks, which spurred them to make a new one, it's still very much intact, and you can actually go inside when it's open and climb all the way up to the top and get a fantastic view of the Chesapeake Bay as you look north and westward. And if you look north and east, of course, you would see.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's going on over there, and that actually leads us into a really nice segue right now. If you want to head out over there to the Cape Henry Lighthouse, I think Riggs had a couple of things to plan out. You are going on to an active duty military installation, a joint expeditionary base, so we want to make sure that we give that shout out to them, and you don't write up no photos at the front of the gate when you're going through. If you're trying to make a documentary or something like that, they're not going to like that quite a bit. You will need to make sure you're not carrying any kind of weapons. So if you're a concealed carrier or something like that in Virginia, you're not going on post. It's just that simple. Don't even attempt it because it could turn into a bad day for you just from a simple misunderstanding. Other than that, once you get there, it's pretty simple. It's a military post. You're going to abide by the rules. It's under a different kind of law. There's additional things you got to follow. So just make sure that you're not acting like a fool. Most of us, if you do go on to Virginia Beach or the Fort Story, you're going to have a good time. And that's one of the reasons that Fort Story, specifically the Cape Henry Light, the old one, is kind of lost and magical. It's because it is on a military installation, and it does require a different rule set. But it's a good time. Riggs, I could not find my photos, but this part of the segment is sponsored by good old-fashioned, the Fort Story Cape Henry Lighthouse. Go there and have a good time. It's definitely worth an hour or so visit right up the street. And I like what you were talking about. So you were getting into the fact that the first one was struck by lightning, right? But also the area that it's built, isn't it? It's on kind of a bluff. So I've got a picture of the two of them up here, just so that you know, even if you can't see it. The Cape Henry Lighthouse, they're both the Cape Henry Lighthouse. The original one is actually built of stone. It's an octagonal structure. It's built of stone and brick, built out of sandstone. And it's got I forget exactly how tall it is, but it's on a bluff, which allows it to be taller than the newer one that was built. So the Cape Henry Lighthouse, the old one that they thought was going to be decommissioned because of that lightning strike incident, is actually taller because of its height from the ground where it was originally built. I believe it's only, I think, 190 something feet. I'll let you know. I'll check that out when I get into it. But it's also about 100 feet over the ground. If you do want to go in, admission is $14 for a combination ticket. You can get regular admission for $10. Now, the combination ticket will give you the ability to go on the grounds a little bit more, as well as go up the tower directly. So one ticket is really you're just going on the grounds. The other ticket is you're going up. If you're not a member of the Lighthouse Association, which I doubt most people will be, the price will be $14 for that combo ticket. The general admission is $10. Senior and military is $9. If you're a student with an ID card or the honor system, that's also going to be $8. Children under 42 inches, whatever that means, under 8 years old, basically, unless you got a really fast-growing child, free. And then the tower climb is general admission pricing. So I guess that there are some differences between the combination ticket includes tower climb. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it is the combination ticket is the one that you want. Lots of fun there. Hours are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week.
Nice. Okay. So I got some of those stats for you on the original lighthouse. So the original lighthouse is 90 feet, but because it's on that bluff, though, it's just higher than the other one. So it's an octangular truncated pyramid of 8 sides. Mm-hmm. Rises 90 feet.
Right.
It's 26 feet in diameter at its base and 16 feet at its top. Mm-hmm. And it's made of Aquia Creek sandstone from the same source as the White House.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, I knew it was made from sandstone, but I didn't know which type. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the new lighthouse is 157 feet tall.
Right.
And was built of cast iron and wrought iron. And it had a more powerful lens called a Fresno Lens.
Fresno Lens, yeah.
So, yeah, it's the only lighthouse on the Virginia coast that's still equipped with that specific type of lens. So it's pretty pretty interesting. That the other one.
So let me just jump in here for a second.
service.
We have Sounds of Freedom going over top of the Live at Lunch studios, but the Fresno lens, guys, for those of you don't know, lenses require convex concaveness or a type of curvature, whether it be inward or outward curvature, in order for them to work and focus light. And so a Fresno lens actually takes that curvature and makes it flat by slicing different concentric rings out of the curve, getting rid of the space in between that does not require or help focus the light, and then flattening it. That way you would have a lens which is very difficult to produce, that could have the magnification you would need to project light, which would have a very big convex or concave curve in this instance. Well, when you make it Fresnel, you actually flatten it down. It can be almost as flat as a pancake. I mean, it has to have the thickness for the actual material, but you're just taking those concentric cuts out of that circular curve and flattening it so that it doesn't protrude outwards. This allows you to have a stronger lens because it allows you to make a larger lens, a literally larger diameter, with less difficulty from that one complete pore that would be required for the lens, especially back when they were making these lenses out of glass and things like that. Today, Fresnel lenses can be seen in stoplights, specifically the ones that almost look like they're glowing during the day. They almost look like they're just beaming straight at you, but slightly off axis. They almost disappear. These are red lights you might see sometimes in tricky traffic situations where it'd be easy to think that the red light was talking about one lane when it might be just addressing a turn lane. Lots of times they'll use Fresnel lenses there because a Fresnel lens can also be built to be so much less bright when it's off axis as to almost make the light, the ambient light levels, not really as noticeable. In this instance, they can also be built to make the light more noticeable off axis. That's what also those concentric rings. Think about an onion. If you cut an onion in half, it's got those concentric rings. But if you just take a bisection slice of it, then those rings are all flat. They're just one thickness. And that's basically what a Fresnel lens is doing, except onions don't magnify light, do they? I don't think they do.
No, they magnify taste.
They magnify taste. Well, I hope, did that make sense? Was what I was saying make sense, or was it completely?
Yes. No, absolutely. I got something I'd throw in there for you. It's interesting because they began to discover technology in that day on how to amplify light and how to throw light. So light is, measured when it comes to a flashlight. The general way that it's measured is two things. There's lumens, which is a measure of candela, which is an old way of saying candle power. So one candela equals 12.57 lumens.
Right.
Okay. So there's lumens, which is the brightness of the light, but then there's throw, and throw is the measure that a light can effectively push that light out into distance. And they discovered over time that putting reflective surfaces in the light itself at certain angles would change the way the light is projected through lenses and would change the way that the light is perceived based on how far it can be thrown out into the distance. And throw can be changed by amplifying candela, but only so much.
Wow.
Actually, the shape of the lenses and the reflective surfaces can actually affect the concentration of the light and how far it can be thrown. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and guys, I've got a picture up on screen I'm going to talk about in just a second. You get to climb like these 80 stairs all the way up to the peak of that little bluff that the original Cape Henry Lighthouse is on. But I also realized earlier, I had a comment that it sounded like our volume was mixed or something like that. Turns out I've adjusted that. So if you listened earlier and it sounded a little wonky, well, now you know why. So that's been adjusted right there. So I got this picture up on the screen, and this is one of the shots. Here's a pro tip for you. If you ever go to the Cape Henry Lighthouse, the old one, and you're going through the walkthrough and the tour, don't be afraid of the foliage that kind of obscures this 80-step, 90-step walk up to the bluff or to the peak where the base of the lighthouse is. In fact, you can use it to kind of frame the lighthouse in a really interesting and moody way that lets you feel a lot like what it would have felt to be in this area back in the 1800s, back in the more colonial times and just the post-revolution times when America was getting its footing, because this is the maritime deciduous forest atmosphere. This is what that environment looks like. And you can get a lot of that when we go to one of the other places we're going to talk about today, which is, of course, Seashore State Park, but we all know it today as First Landing State Park. But this idea of this maritime deciduous forest, these very thick little groves of very densely packed vegetation right on top of these sand dunes that are holding them all together right up here at the spit, which Fort Story was built on. So it's a lot of neat fun. So while we're talking about that, don't forget to enjoy that climb. I love that picture right there. That was a great picture.
Well, I would like to throw some more information about the lighthouse in there. So there's two things I found in some of my research that's really significant about the Cape Henry Lighthouse.
Yeah.
It's known for two historical firsts.
Oh yeah.
The first one being that it was the first constitutionally funded, approved, federal project paid for by federal tax dollars.
Right.
Post, the Revolutionary War. The second first, we fast forward, a little over 100 years into the future, and we find that it was also the first lighthouse to be manned and operated by an African American. So today's quick shout out is going to be to a prominent historical figure in Virginia Beach history, because he was a Virginia Beach native from the Kempsville area, and that is Willis Augustus Hodges. And he was born February 12th, 1815, and he was an African American abolitionist, journalist, and he was born to free parents in the Kempsville area of Virginia Beach. And his father was a free man as well, who owned land and farmed. And he was quite the man. He did a lot of outstanding things in this time. Other than being the first African-American lighthouse owner, or not owner, but operator.
Operator.
Yes, he was a scout for the Union Army during the Civil War. He assisted slaves escaping from the South to the North via the Underground Railroad. At one point, he had fled the Virginia Beach area to New York and to New York City, and worked at a paper there. Mm-hmm. And eventually he returned to the Virginia Beach area, where he passed away in 1890, and Norfolk. So he paved the way for one of the first all African-American life-saving Coast Guard teams, because he kind of set the tone and set the precedent, and people contribute that first African-American life-saving team to some of his influence in the area, and showing that, that
I like it.
Racism is wrong.
Sure. VirginiaEncyclopedia.com or .org. EncyclopediaVirginia.org has him right here. Willis A. Hodges, 1815 to 1890. Willis A. Hodges, an anti-slavery activist, newspaper editor, and member of the Convention of 1867 to 1868. I'm not familiar with whatever that is. He was born in Princess Anne County to the son of free African Americans, and that was right here in Virginia, Princess Anne County in Virginia. To free African Americans, and he learned how to read and write with his brothers, Charles E. Hodges and William Johnson Hodges, and he became an outspoken abolitionist. Before the American War in 1861 to 65, he moved between Virginia, Brooklyn, and New York, where his brother William Johnson had settled after a run-in with the law. Apparently there was some interesting chase going on there. Wow. He ministered at Baptist Church, he farmed his land, and he helped his family found in the different temporary temperance society, whatever the temperance society is, in 1847. Maybe I've read that wrong. And he helped found a temperance society. And in I guess that's what he did. Do you know much about the temperance societies, as an aside?
No, I don't.
Me either.
I'd have to look that up.
But here's what I really want to, if you guys are checking, they've got some great pictures of him on EncyclopediaVirginia.org. And it's important because you see him throughout his lifetime. You can see pictures when he was young, as a young man with cropped hair and a big wide-burned mustache, looking really dapper with a suit with the high collar and the black slim bow tie, which is really nice. And then you can see him as an older man, right, as he's sitting there with spectacles and his long tails. He still has that suit with tails. Now he's wearing glasses. His head isn't cropped, but now it's got the fashion of the time, which is short on top and kind of Benjamin Franklin style around the side. Black hair still, jet black, and just a little bit more weight as he grew older, but still he's working. And throughout his life, he was working for political change, appears. And it difference than just being this wouldn't be a social justice worker today. This man right here would probably have laughed at that idea because he was an actual politician working for the betterment of apparently not just his people and the plight that his people and Africans had gone through at the time, but what it meant to be an American. If you read this, as I'm reading a lot before, he truly and completely believed in the heart of the American spirit and worked diligently his entire life for America and for the betterment of American people. Wow. It's not just one class or category. That's it. That's an interesting man right there. That's cool. That's a real man. That's a brave man. Wow. So check out.
Yeah, definitely.
Check out that. And there's another autobiography you can find. If you search for him, you'll see all kinds of stuff. It really goes in deep. But that's Willis Hodges, and he was lighthouse operator of the Cape Henry Lighthouse. That's pretty cool.
Yes. He only operated it for about 2 months, but you want to talk about a Renaissance man. That's it. That is a man who, did many different things in his time here on this earth.
Yeah.
And all of them focused on, fixing the issues of his time and working towards greater solutions. And probably, he had to be extremely selfless because he would have not been appreciated by many in his day because of the, terrible injustices of his time.
Well, we don't know that for sure. There probably were, I wouldn't say that. For the fact that he fought and was able to do and live to tell about it, have a family and continue, means that he at least, I don't know, I didn't read all of the persecution, but it's easy to romanticize that the South during this time was just a bunch of haters. And that's not the case. In fact, I also read somewhere where his family, maybe he had even had a slave at one point in time. Whether or not
his father did.
His father. All right. So that kind of negates exactly what you just said. If you were talking about the fact that slavery happened, and of course, obviously wrong. I'm not saying slavery is right. What I'm saying is it couldn't have been that bad because he was able to do everything he did because he fought. So it was not like he didn't make it out to breed, procreate, and have his ideas. He talked in front of Congress, right? And his father owned a slave on his farm. Right. So there was I'm going to tell you, society mixed differently than it does in the papers. When you just get down to it on a person-to-person level, most people are just happy to live and let live, I would believe. That doesn't mean that I think his life was a bunch of roses. There's no doubt strife. But I think he would have come across that strife from the fact that he was, postulating ideas which were really revolutionary at the time. And he definitely did run across some strife and some trauma from the age, that we were talking about. Yeah. But it's not like everybody from the South was. Look, my family grows up in Leggett, North Carolina. My grandmother's family comes back there from 1784. They're dirt farmer sharecroppers that came over as indentured servants. I'm going to tell you right now, there were no slave owned in my grandmother's side. My grandfather's side, I don't know so much about. They were English and settled over, or German and settled over in Texas back in the 1860s. But the reality is they grew up on Mr. Leggett's land, lived in the houses that Mr. Leggett let them live in, didn't have a floor, and my grandmother didn't have a pair of shoes until she was 12 going on 13, right? So this type of stuff isn't just subjugated to one person or one people. There are bad situations that happen to all of us. This man was born in a bad situation and made the most of it. He really grew up there.
That's what I'm alluding to, and I know that he would have, faced opposition because of his race. From some people, and that's mostly what I'm referring to. His opponents, would have been against him, not only because of his political ideologies, which were different than some of the ones during the day, but because of his opponents coming against him because of his his upbringing or his race. So that's what I'm getting at the most. But I agree with you on all those other sentiments as well, that he is definitely, a man of his times who overcame a lot and was able to do quite a bit in his lifetime. And it kind of ties into the Memorial Day thing because of him being a veteran. Now, granted, he's not he didn't pass away in the war, thankfully, but I'm sure he would have known people in the Union Army that had passed away. So he would have had time as well to reflect on the losses of the Civil War.
Oh yeah. And I think as we talk about that, it's a good aside to go ahead and kind of chit chat a little bit about Seashore State Park, which brings us into our next segment. Today, we're actually sponsoring all of this by lovely, wonderful places in Virginia Beach, and this is Seashore State Park. Now, we're calling it Seashore State Park right at this moment, but the reality is it's currently First Landing State Park. And I remember I was in high school when they made the change from Seashore State Park to First Landing State Park here in Virginia Beach, and it was a big deal, the fact that Seashore was going to be called something different. But in any event, Seashore State Park, First Landing State Park, is a National Parks Registered historic site specifically because of the different things that have happened there. We'll get into a little bit of that. There's some lore. Could even be some buried treasure somewhere around there. With a lot of with a lot of its land that was actually donated to it after it became a federally funded state park. I may not have that directly right, so I'll check that as we're going through. But some of the land was actually given and donated to First Landing from Fort Story, which is kind of cool. And great place to go. Campsites, a seashore prevention center that has, displays, and you can have weddings there. It's a whole thing that talks about the ecology of the area, how long it's been around. They believe that the sand that is actually there showed up between 3,000 and 5,000 years ago between a hurricane that made this spit of land that brought the sand dunes, some of which tower 80, 90 feet. Now, you don't see them as much because of the maritime deciduous forest that's there, which means a broadleaf forest, not needles like pine trees, but short, stubby undergrowth, broadleaf. And you don't see them, but they're there. You definitely walk up on them. Cape Henry was built on one of them, the original. That's the sand dune. It's not like Jockey's Ridge in North Carolina. But Riggs, go ahead and lead us into that conversation about good old-fashioned First Landing.
Well, first off, it's Seashore State Park.
I love it.
I can't think of it as First Landing. I just can't, man. I can't do it. Although it probably is historically a more appropriate name, because that is part of Seashore State Park is First Landing, where they landed. What year was that? Was that 1607? I'm trying to remember.
1607, yeah. The English colonists first landed in 1607. Native American canoes, colonial. I'm thinking about the dessert. Colonial settlers and 20th century schooners and modern cargo ships have all navigated the park's waterways. Yeah, so this is one of the ways to get into Virginia Beach, goes through the waterways just behind that area of Lynnhaven River and stuff like that, connecting up to the Chesapeake Bay too. Really interesting. So lots of people have been there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, brother. So I'm going to go ahead and give a quick orientation here. So, a few seconds ago, we were up at the lighthouses at Cape Henry. So if you shoot south and slightly east of Fort Story Joint Expeditionary Base, Little Creek, you'll find Seashore State Park. It's basically east of Broad Bay in the general Lynnhaven area and south of Fort Story itself, slightly southeast.
Right.
And the significance is that somewhere in that park was on the coastal area was the site of the First Landing where they put the famous cross down. And now there is a statue of a cross there commemorating the site of the First Landing. And the settlers stopped briefly.
And that's on Fort Story too, because Fort Story has a cross. That's I got the picture pulled up on.
I think that's the cross I'm speaking of. Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
It's all generally considered the same area. So, we understand where it's at in relation to that. And then it's the largest state park in Virginia, and it's the most heavily trafficked, most visited state park in the state of Virginia. It's got 19 miles of trail, about 31 kilometers of trails all throughout. And I have many great memories with you and the kiddos heading back there and traipsing along the trails. Some of them just sandy paths, and some of them wood deck, actually, that cover some of the more marshy areas that you wouldn't want to go through on foot. But it's a great area. And I remember being a kid and, all the rumors going around about, there's a monster in the swamp at Seashore State Park, or there's a witch that lives out there, and some of that Witchapungo lore.
Some of that Witchapungo stuff,
mixing into the lore. I remember going there as a kid to play, and then going there on a field trip and learning about it. But I think one of the more fascinating pieces of history at Seashore First Landing State Park is the connection to one of the most famous pirates in all of pirate lore and history, which is Blackbeard. So Blackbeard,
Edward Teach.
Edward Teach, at one point was sailing in and out of the Chesapeake Bay. So I can only imagine at that time how wild most of Virginia Beach, Cape Henry, and those swamp and marsh areas would have been.
Now, for those of you that are watching on the live stream right now, I've actually got pictures of exactly what Riggs is talking about pulled up right now, and I'm scrolling through them. So the tangled undergrowth of the deciduous maritime forest, which is a classification of forest that's a real thing, that's why I keep saying it, of these broad-leafed, well-knit, stubby trees that are designed to endure harsh saltwater environments like this, lead to nothing more than murky lagoons that almost, what are they called when like the water kind of they have them, there's a particular kind of tree.
Brackish.
Well, they're not just brackish. You're absolutely right. It is brackish, but the Bahamas are known to have a particular type of tree that the roots are down in the water and the water recedes.
Cypress.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember. But anyways, yeah, all kinds of this stuff. And the Spanish moss hanging, mosquitoes as big as $50.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is what First Landing State Park is still like today. Seashore State Park is still like this. It has been preserved. So if you go there, you can actually get that same feeling of what Blackbeard was sailing through.
Oh, he entered Chesapeake Bay, and he had recently plundered a ship, and they had gotten a lot of valuable stuff, treasure, what have you. You know, sky's the limit. Let your imagination take you where it will with that pirate lure thing. And they basically came around the Cape and went into Seashore State Park, what is now known as Seashore State Park, into the dune areas, and did not realize, but another vessel was in hot pursuit of them. So they were basically, somebody got the jump on them, and they had to leave very quickly. So they buried the treasure. According to legend, they buried the treasure in the dunes in the sand somewhere out there.
Wow.
And had to leave. They then fled to North Carolina to his hideout. But before he could make it to his hideout, another sea captain by the name of Lieutenant Robert Maynor caught him and brought him to his end by beheading him.
Wow.
Now, the legend is that although he died in North Carolina from being beheaded, that his ghost returned to Seashore State Park, forever haunting the swamps there, looking for his buried treasure.
Wow.
Or to protect it.
Or to protect it. Lots of fun. There's lots of ghost stories and stuff down here because we got Crowtown, Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads. This whole coastal area right here is just inundated with history, mainly because this is the area, Jamestown, Colonial Williamsburg. Lots of the English colonists settled and came to this area, but also to the locals, the Native Americans, and even seafaring groups like the French and the Scandinavians. They would take boating trips through here. You know, they would come to these waters and to fish and to explore and everything. So it's not just the European settlers or colonists and things like that. And so there is so much history around here, and a lot of it is under our nose because we really built up a destination town in Virginia Beach, right? This whole area, but nestled in the middle of it is Seashore State Park, is Cape Henry, like we've been talking about, the lighthouses, Blackbeard running all the way around through here, down in the Outer Banks too. I mean, and he was a school teacher. You know, maybe he got the name Teach because of that. I don't really know how surnames came up back in the day, but he had been a school teacher, and I believe had actually been taken captive at some point in time, which is how he became introduced to privateering. Well, not privateering, being a pirate. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I should probably look this up. Maybe you can find it. I don't want to say anything stupid, but I think that he actually became a pirate captain by killing his captain that captured him. The pirates had a whole different structure about how they...
Yes.
Yeah, so he went from a skinny school teacher to Blackbeard. I guess he was just over it. I'm done. This is Falling Down. Who was that? Michael Douglas in Falling Down? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Falling Down, but for real.
Well, speaking of that, you know, the West Coast had the Goonies, you know, and One-Eyed Willie, you know, up in the Northwest Coast. I forget what state the movie takes place in, but that movie fascinated me as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I always wished when I was a kid that Virginia Beach would have those craggy rocks and everything, not knowing as a kid
it was right here the whole time.
That it was right here the whole time. Yeah, exactly. That we had real pirate lore from the most infamous pirate of all. And no, that's not Captain Jack Sparrow. That's Blackbeard.
He's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's not real, kids.
No, I doubt he had any messy divorce. Any messy divorce settlements he had to go to court for.
Yeah. Not today.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, pretty fascinating stuff that, you know, he was right there and his treasure's out there. So I wonder if anyone's ever went and searched for it.
Oh yeah, there's you can search and do Google. Maybe we'll have some follow up on this. We're about ready to hit that drop report coming up in just a minute. So we're going to close out all of this stuff. My friends were punching in on an hour. But yeah, there actually are people that have looked for the buried treasure out there. I remember hearing about it. And for those of you that are in the know and would like to know, the man from Virginia Beach that was attempting to row to France just last week, I think it was on the 27th or 26th of May, ended after 8 days. He called it off. Storms in this little 20-foot rowboat, or a rowboat, literally. A high-tech rowboat, but a rowboat nonetheless. Called it off, and he'll continue training for the next run at rowing across the Atlantic. Yeah, not for me. And he was in his 60s, something like that. Lots of times.
Man, that's a bucket list.
That's a bucket list right there. But the other thing is, you know, it's the Atlantic Ocean. We're not talking about Lake Superior, and I wouldn't even want to do Lake Superior. In fact, Lake Superior is violent. Those might remember good old Edmund Fitzgerald. But in any event, yeah, I just wanted to let you know, if you have been following that, he called it off. And it wasn't because of a lack of grit and hair on various parts of his hair on his bottom, let's say that. It was because the seas had topped over 20 feet in his little rowboat. Knots were gusting around 30 knots gusts. And so maybe that was sustained and a little bit higher. But in any event, if you're in a 20-foot rowboat and the wave height is 20 feet, you might not make it down the next one. Right? So he called for some help, and they came and got him. I look forward to hearing what he's going to do next time. But yeah, my friends, that's going to bring us out to the drop report. It's time to get this thing moving. I want to thank you guys for listening up today and let you know what the cool places to go and do this weekend are. And I'm going to tell you right now, you've already heard about them this entire time. First one, you got to hit up Cape Henry Lighthouse. Learn about our boy, Mr. Hodges, Willis Hodges. Learn about all the great things that he did. Augustus M. Hodges, was one of the guys, and Willis Augustus Hodges was the gentleman we were talking about today, Renaissance man. Find out how he used to keep the lighthouse going as you're stepping up some of the same steps that he may have gone up himself. Don't forget to take your instant camera and get a nice little picture while you're out there. Lots of fun. Remember, about $10 to $14 for admission, and you're going on military base, so keep that up in mind as you're going. Nothing in your car that you wouldn't want people to see. And in Virginia, hey guys, Virginia, we carry firearms. You know, it's an open carry state and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with having it legally carried or concealed. Just make sure you're not hitting a military base with it. What's the next one, Riggs? We're going to talk about Seashore State Park. Give that intro.
Oh, Seashore State Park, First Landing State Park. Absolutely beautiful place. If you go, one of the most popular places to go is the place we went last time when we were actually there, Rob, which is Bald Cypress Walkway.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to get, if you're on a time crunch and you want to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, take that trail. There's so many trails to go on, but that one will give you some of the most splendid views of the Cypress Swamp itself. The water is very murky, and you won't be able to see through some of it, but you'll see a lot of cool wildlife out there, and it's definitely worthwhile. So bring your camera, take some fantastic pictures, but you might want to bring the bug spray as well, because some of those giant mosquitoes are going to be out there looking for their next meal. Don't let it be you. Get the bug spray going.
Yeah, that's right. So right now I'm going to pull up jet skis down at Virginia Beach. Well, we want to go ahead and make sure that we got one call out for a local business, something we'd like to do. This is Rudy Inlet Jet Skis rentals. You can go down there and rent them for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, even the day. It's a lot of fun, lots of cool place, and get out there and get on the water. And once you get in those waters, you get to see Virginia Beach and everything else the way that the locals do from a unique perspective, having a lot of fun. And it's just another way to have a great time. So 3 great things to do in Virginia Beach. Most of them don't cost much. You're going to spend about $100 a pop when you go out and do the jet skis, but that experience is definitely worthwhile. If you're going to do that, make sure you pick up a Virginia Beach local guide and get one of those like monster coupon books or something, because you will see coupons in there that can give you up to half off, just depending on what the current special is. So that's it for today. Friends, we have had a great one. What a fun time. Riggs, man. Good stuff, right?
Excellent stuff, man.
So,
how many?
Yeah.
I would say, how many people know Blackbeard's ghost is right there in Virginia Beach?
At least a
Not
couple.
many.
At least a couple now. Guys, we want to thank you so much for listening and watching today. We're going to send you off with a little bit of stay right here and say thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to jump in next week. Got another great show coming up for you. If you would like to have your music featured here at the end, go ahead and send an email to live@thelocal757.com. Our producers will check that email out. Have a link to the song if you've got it on YouTube or SoundCloud, something like that. We would love to hear it. And if you're a business that would like to be sponsored, give us a chit chat. We'd like to get you up on here too and talk about what you do and some of the unique local gems of Virginia Beach. This is Local 757. I'm Rob. I want to say thanks. Riggs wants to say thanks. Well, I'll say thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Send my best friend an apologetic text. He says to come over. Well, the whole damn town has been waiting for the day when you would come back here. There was dancing and talking and steaks on the